Hello, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, this may be the most important video that I have done so far because this one topic has totally changed my game once I learned it, and most people don't even know what the heck it is. So hopefully in this video, I can explain it very clearly so that you can take from it what I did whenever I first learned it myself. Alright, welcome back guys. So in today's video we're going to be covering bowling math. And you're probably wondering, what is bowling math? Well, we're going to learn about it here. And I got a couple of points for you, and hopefully you take from it what I did whenever I first learned it, so that way you can better put it into your game. Because really what bowling math is, it's just a tool. It's just a tool, just like your bowling ball is just a tool. But this is a tool that you will use every single time. So hopefully I can stress this enough and explain it to where you can understand it. That's really my goal, is because this one thing has totally changed my whole bowling game in general. So my goal is to just explain it as clearly as possible. So the first 2 points here. What is it? What is bowling math? It is a formula to help you figure out where to stand on the approach so that you can get aligned to your target. And so, more or less, what bowling math is, it's a formula that was created, as far as I know, from the Kegel Training Center. This is where I learned it at. They have come up with a formula for us bowlers to know where to stand at on the foul line in order to hit our target more consistently. And so really what it is it tells you where to stand and how to better get aligned toward where you are wanting to throw the bowling ball. So what is it that you need to know in order to figure out how to use this formula? It is, the first point is drift. You need to know what your focal point is, and you need to know where you're going to be hitting at the arrows. So if you don't know what the drift is, and if you don't know what the focal point is, then I'm going to explain that further. And we all know what the arrows are on the lane itself. And so I'm going to cover these 2 points here and explain it in further detail. That way you can better understand it. So what is your drift? Your drift is how many boards you move left or right in your approach from the start of your setup to your finish. Depending on if you are right-handed or left-handed, that will dictate your left or right movement. So if you're right-handed, your drift should be going left, and if you're left-handed, your drift should be going right. So for me, my drift from the back of the approach is 9 boards. And so if I'm wanting to slide at board 23, I'm going to stand on board 14 because I drift left 9 boards to the left. Where if you're left-handed and your drift is right, then let's say you want to slide on board 20 and your drift is 9 boards like me, then you'll be standing on board 11. And so that's basically how it works. Your drift is how many boards that you move left. Now, if you're right-handed and your drift is right, then we have a problem, because then you are out of alignment and you got what the Kegel Training Center calls the S-curve. And a lot of bowlers have this same issue, is where they go left and then back right. Or if you're left-handed, they go right and then back left. And the whole reason of why this even happens is because your mind and your body perceives where you are wanting to throw the ball, it perceives that you are out of alignment. And so you think that you have to correct yourself, which means you gotta either cross way back over or cross way back over here. And though the reason why that happens is because you're trying to save yourself. Your body is trying to save yourself because it thinks that you need to throw it at this position when really the whole problem is you're crossing over. And so your mind is really messing with you. And so hopefully in this video I can break that down further. So these are your focal points, and really what you want to look at, and I'm going to zoom in as close as I can here, that way you all can see it better. But really, this is the head pin, 3-pin, 6-pin, and the 10-pin. And so you need to know what the number of boards it is on each one. That way you can figure out what your focal point is. So the center of the 6-pin is the 9 board. The center of the 10-pin is the 4 board. And the center of the 3-pin is actually right in between 15 and 14. But whenever you're doing bowling math, we just say board 14 for the 3-pin, and for the head pin we will say board 20. And so it's 20, 14, 9, and 4. And the reason why that it's not center on the 3-pin and the head pin is because that the boards are not exactly 1 inch. I believe it may be 1.6 inches, but I'm not sure on that. I will cover that later on in the video because I have put together the dimensions of the lane itself. But that's how you figure out your focal point. It's 4, 9, 14, and 20. And each board has a number. And so in case you don't know that, each board has a number. And you have to know what board that you're trying to throw to. And so this will help you figure that out. And so 20 is here, but if you look, like if you drew a line directly through the head pin, this is board 19. This is board 19, and you go, that's where you're looking at. This is board 18. This is board 16, 15, 14, 13. This is board 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2. And so you can kind of visualize where you want to throw the ball. And because your eyes will lie to you, they will deceive you. You think that you're throwing at a target, but you're actually probably missing it by a couple of boards, if not more. And that's the reason why you're going to be very inconsistent if you don't know what your focal point is and where you're trying to throw it. Okay, so this will help you figure out what to do on different patterns. So if it's a short pattern, this is what we're doing. We're looking at the 10-pin or the 7-pin, depending on if you're right or left-handed. So 10-pin if you're right-handed. And as you can see here, this is your focal point. This is lined up directly with the 4 board. And then for a median pattern, you're looking at the 6-pin. This is around 40 feet. And you're looking at the 6-pin, which is what? The 9 board. And then for the long pattern, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at the 3-pin, which is, it's 40 or more feet. 3-pin is right here, and that is the 14 board. So if I can write that down, long is the 14 board, medium is the 9 board, and then the short is the 4 board. If you all can read that. 4 board short, 9 board medium pattern, 14 board long pattern. And why that is because we do the -31 rule, which I will cover once we go over the formula itself. we have come to the most important part of the video. So what is it? Let's see what it is. So you start off, you have to pick a line. So the line that is in this formula right here, just for example, is we're going to go 10 to 7. So what's that mean? 10 at the arrows and then 7 for your focal point. So 10 to 7. So what you do is you take your arrow, which is the 10 board, and you minus your focal point, which is the 7 board. So we're going to go 10 minus 7. And what is that? That is 3. And what you want to do is you want to divide that by 3. So this works for every single time. You take your arrow minus your focal point. And so if it's 3, you have to now divide that by 3, which is what? That is now 1. So if that is, so that is 1. So then what happens? You have to add that to the arrows for the laydown board. And so what's that mean? So basically you add 1 to 10, and that equals 11. And your laydown board is where you lay down your ball, which is at the foul line. So you're laying it down at the 11 board. And so then what do? You have to add 5 to find the slide board, which is 11 plus 5, then that equals 16. So we're laying it down at board 11, and then 16 is our slide board. Yeah, so this is the point of the math equation. Slide 16, lay down 11, and then go to 10 to 7. If I can erase that real quick. So then, in order to figure out where to stand on the approach, you have to take 16 and then minus your drift. So for me, in this scenario, if I'm sliding 16, I have to minus my drift, which is what? Normally 9 boards. So you'll take 16 minus 9, which will give you 7. So that's how you figure it out. For me, in this equation, I'm standing on board 7. I'm going to slide 16. I'm laying it down at board 11. And I'm hitting the 10 board at the arrows. And then my focal point is board 7 down lane. And so there's your formula. And hopefully that makes sense to you. And we will cover this again in another example at the end of the video. But yeah, hopefully you understand that now. Yeah, so I got this picture here. It's with EJ Tack, and I just wanted to give you a little visual of what you see whenever you're at the foul line. And so how you want to measure where you stand is I measure on the inside of the foot. And so on this lane, on Brunswick lanes, you have 39 boards. And so if this is board 39, he's sliding about board 40 right there. And I don't know where he throws this ball, but if you can only assume how he releases it right here, what's his line going to be? His line's going to be right through here. And it's going to start curving about right here. That's what I would assume. And so whenever you see that, you have to kind of visualize that yourself at home. You have to figure out what your line is going to be. But imagine if that is the line, and he's laying it down there. If he's sliding at board 40, where is he laying it down at? Board 35, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's board 35, because this is board 30, and that's board 35. And so whenever he releases it, it will be about right here. Although he has it right here right now. But whenever he releases it, it comes right through here. And that's how you kind of visualize that whenever you release it. Because you can't see it in live action unless you record yourself on a camera. And so now you release it, it's 5 boards to the right of your foot, which is close to your ankle, and it's coming in, and then this is the line. And as you can see, what I thought before is different than what is. And because you're releasing it here, and then you draw a line, and there's your line. And this really is just kind of used to kind of visualize where you're going to be throwing the ball and how your ball really takes shape once it gets to the friction. So I thought at this point in the video we could cover the bowling lane dimensions, which the only reason why I want to cover this is so that you can figure out the math at home of where you need to stand, how many boards, how many feet back that you're standing on the approach. So that way you can kind of visualize in your mind where to stand at and how you're going to get to the foul line. And so with the Brunswick lanes, it's 60 feet to the head pin from the foul line. The width of the lane is 41.5 inches. There's 39 boards on the lane surface. One board is 0.06 inches. And so I misspoke earlier in the video. I said 1.6, it's 1.06 inches wide. And that's the reason why on that 3-pin, it's right in the center of the pin. It's actually right in between board 15 and 14. And so that's the reason why it's not perfectly in the center. But again, visualize board 14 for the 3-pin if you are right-handed. And so there you go. One board is 1.06 inches. The dots are 12 feet past the foul line. And so what I'm talking about the dots is there's a row of dots right in front of the foul line, and it's right before you see the arrows on the lane. And so that is exactly 12 feet past the foul line, and then the arrows are 15 feet. And so you'll see the dots first at 12, and then you'll see the arrows at about 15 feet. And then the pin deck, the length of the pin deck, which is where the pin's set, is actually 2 feet and 10 inches. And then the approach is 15 feet long. So if you were to add that all up, the length of the whole entire lane, 60 feet plus 15 feet is what? It's 75. So plus 2 feet is 77, and plus 10 inches, that's 77 feet and 10 inches long from the end of the approach to the very end of the bowling lane itself. Now that doesn't factor in the machine and where the ball goes into whenever it rolls off the lane. It doesn't factor in the whole entire setup, but the lane itself is that long. It's 77 feet 2 inches. And this right here kind of gives you a little visualization of how long the bowling lane actually is. And so that's what you're trying to figure out is, where do you stand on the approach? Do you stand on the first row of dots, or do you stand on the second row of dots? Now for me, I stand back here. But if I'm going to slow down my speed a lot, then I'll stand up here. But keep in mind, if you slow down your ball speed, and if you move up on the approach from back to the front, then your drift will then change. And that's what you have to keep in mind. Your drift will change based on where you stand on the approach. And so you have to figure that out whenever you go practice, is figure out, depending on where you stand on the approach, what is my drift going to be? And so figure that out at home. That way that you can put that into your formula, and that'll help you figure out where you need to stand in order to figure out how to get to your slide board and then your laydown board. So for me, in that same example that we were talking about before, I needed to stand at board 7 which is right here. Standing here, I'm going to slide. This is the foul line right here. Obviously, this is not to scale, but just imagine that I need to slide at board 16, which is right here. It's right here. Board 16, I'm going to lay it down at board 11. And then board 11, like in the example before, then goes to the arrow at board 10. And then down here, we need to look at board 7. And where's board 7? Remember, the 9 board is right in the middle of the 6 pin. And so you need to go about right here to find board 7. And then that's your line. You will release it here. And this is a pretty straight line. You will release it here. And then let's say that it's, I don't know, like a 40-foot pattern. That'll be somewhere around here. And that'll be your target area. So this is your line. If I can draw this here, let's see. That's your line, and then there you go. So you see how straight that is. But that's how you visualize it. Because although your focal point is here, you have to move it back to wherever your break point is. And so let's say that the break point is here. That's how you focus on where you need to figure out. So this is your focal point. This is your arrows. This is your lay down. This is your slide board. And this is where you stand on the approach. And that's how you figure out that formula, and that way you can visualize it on the lane itself. All right, so in this section of the video, I just want to give you a little idea of what the drift looks like. And so in this picture, you see where I'm standing at right now. I'm standing at around the 13 or 12 board right here, because I measured from the inside of the left foot. And then when I finish, you see where I'm finishing at. This is around the 21 board here. And so I started at about right here with my inside of my left foot, and then this is my drift. So I started here, and my drift took me all the way over here. And that's how you figure out where that you're sliding to. Because if you don't know your drift, then you can't figure out this formula. That's why your drift is so important. And so know how many boards that you go left. But here's the problem, like I was talking about before. If your drift is actually going this way, because you have an S-curve, well then we're going to have a problem, because that's when you cross over. That's whenever you go back this way, and then you cross over this way, and your shoulder's going down, just because you're trying to save it, and everything is then crossing your body this way. And so you don't want to do that, because if you do that, then you'll be very inconsistent, and you'll see the ball motion either go left or right, left or right. There's going to be situations where if you're bowling in a league or in a house league, then maybe you can get by with that. But it's when you get to the higher levels, is when you get to the professional level. If you're wanting to be a professional, you cannot have a S-curve, because the consistency is very, very fine. It's a fine line of how many boards that you can miss. And a lot of times, if you go to the US Open with those patterns are so hard. The margin for error is really one board. And we just covered how big is a board. It's 1.06 inches. So when we talk about a board, it's about that wide. And we're talking about the miss room. It could be that wide. And so it's just very, very hard. And which means that you need to know exactly where you're standing, where you're sliding, where you're releasing the ball, where your point is at the arrows and where the focal point is down lane, so that way you can be as precise as possible. This does not help you win tournaments, but this does help you figure out where to stand and where to throw the bowling ball depending on the length of the pattern. That way you can better understand where to start, and then you can make adjustments from there. This is the clear example. In case you don't understand the whole process yet, you will eventually, but this is the clearest example that I can give you. That way you can better understand how to use this for yourself. So again, we're going to take the bear pattern, and the length of the bear pattern changes from time to time. The volume changes. It changes every single year. But we're just going to say, for this example, the bear pattern is 40 feet. And so if we know that, and if we know what the minus 31 rule is, then we can say 40 minus 31 equals 9, which is what I just wrote down right here. So 40 minus 31 is 9. And that is now our focal point. And where is the 9 board? Right in the middle of that 6 pin. And so, again, focal point is now the 9 board. The arrow that we're going to be looking at is board 15. So, board 15 at the arrows, focal point is 9. So what are we doing now? It is now 15 minus 9 equals 6. So what do we do with that number? Well, we're going to take 6 and divide it by 3. And so we go from, again, the length of the pattern minus 31 to get where our focal point is, which is now board 9. And then we will take that and take 15 minus 9, because 15 is where we're looking at the arrow. So 15 minus 9 is now 6. Then we take 6 and divide it by 3, which then equals 2. All right, so now what? We're going to take this, our arrows, and then add 2 boards because, or just add 2, because we just done 6 divided by 3 and 2. So we take that 2, we'll take 15 plus 2, and then that equals 17. So then, in order to find where our slide board is, that is now, we have to now add 5 every single time. So that's now 22. So we're going to lay it down at board 17, but then we're going to slide at board 22. So then we take 22 and then minus whatever your drift is. So for me, it's 9 boards, and then that leaves me at board 13. So in order to go all the way back up again, where do we go? I'm standing at board 13, and then I'm going to slide at board 22. I'm going to lay it down at board 17. I'm going to hit the arrows at board 15, and then my focal point is now at board 9. Hopefully that made sense to you. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but this is as clear as possible. If you want to take a screenshot of it, you can, but this is just an example. You have to factor it into whatever your drift is. That way you can figure out where to stand and where to slide and where to throw your line. And this works with anything. Now, I will say this. The focal point is never exact. You may need to move the focal point to either the right or left. Like for me, I'm more of a higher rep guy. And sometimes I need to move the focal point farther right, because if I keep it, like in this scenario, if I keep it on board 9, depending on what the volume of the pattern is, it may read the lane surface too early. Even if you're using a cleaner ball surface like a pearl, it still may read too early. So then that means you need more room to play with. So you need to go farther right in order to have more room in order for the ball to shape into the pocket. Because if not, doesn't matter how far you move left, the ball reaches the lane surface too early and it never gets to that point on the lane that you want to get to in order for it to shape in, because there's just too much friction. And so sometimes you need to move your focal point. So it's not exact, but this is your starting point. So you start with the -31 rule, and then you kind of adjust from there, just depending on what the pattern is looking like, what the lane surface looks like, and then you just go on from there. So just to cover this again, we're going to stand on 13, slide 22, ball is released at 17, we're going to hit the arrows at 15, and then our focal point is at 9. And so this is as clear as possible as I can get it. What happens when you learn this? So you've taken all this in now, you now know the formula, you know how to use it. Well, now what? Well, what you learn from this is you no longer think, you just do. You focus on what's in front of you, you focus on adjustments, your mind that doesn't wander, and you are now in a better mental state and becoming more professional. And so the reason why I write those things is because that's what has happened to me. It has helped me so much, because before I was so focused on other things. And, you want to do good, you want to beat people, and you don't want to lose. And so if you're constantly focused on that, well, then you're gonna lose your mind. You're gonna probably not do too well. And so by focusing just on the numbers itself, you no longer think about anything else. You're just thinking about, okay, I need to stand here, I need to stand on 17, I need to slide at whatever board I need to slide at 26, I need to release it at 21, and you're just thinking about the numbers. You're no longer thinking about how good you're doing, how bad you're doing. You're just making good shots. You focus on each frame and make good shots, and then that's it. So you no longer think about nothing else. You're just bowling. You're not even thinking about what Susie's doing down here or what John's doing down here. You're just bowling and trying to make as good of a score as possible by focusing on each frame solely and then nothing else. So, like I say, this will totally change your entire game. I know it's confusing at first. It was hard for me to learn. It took me a couple of weeks to really kind of get it into my mindset. But what you can do, you can write this down, write down the formula, and then have a little card. That way each time you go practice, you can look at it and then read it back. That way you can better understand, okay, so I need to stand here, release it here, slide here. But the first goal you have is to figure out what your drift is. If you can figure out your drift and be consistent with it, then you can start using this formula. That way you can better release it and get it online more consistently, and that way you don't mess up as much. So hopefully you learned something in this video. I will go over certain things after this video and different videos, but hopefully you got something from this one, and then I will see you in the next one coming up. Thanks for watching.